And there's a particular reason, of course, to speak to you at Westminster, Tom, because we've got Stephen Flynn, the SNP's leader in Westminster, reflecting that what they need to do with this party gathering in a month's time or so is really work out what they do and where they go on the issue of independence itself.
Yes, certainly. And it does seem that this strategy of Nicola Sturgeon to turn the next election into somehow a second referendum by proxy has caused a bit of rancour and a bit of discontent within the SNP. And it's interesting listening there to Stephen Flynn and his comments today. They really do reflect what are growing fissures within the SNP. It was only a few weeks ago that there was an effective coup here in Westminster, and the former leader of the SNP group in Parliament here, Ian Blackford, was turfed out, and Stephen Flynn won a not particularly competitive election to replace him. And that's particularly interesting because Stephen Flynn is someone from a different wing of the SNP from Nicola Sturgeon. He represents a seat up near Aberdeen. He's been more in favour, for example, of the oil and gas industry than Nicola Sturgeon has been at Holyrood with her Green Party partners there in government. And so it is fascinating to see how the SNP, when it first arrived in huge numbers in Westminster back in 2015, when over 40 Scottish seats for the first time in history went to the Nationalists, they acted as a sort of uniform bloc. They were very, very disciplined in their messaging and in their whipping. They wouldn't allow any sort of fissures or disagreements to be public, to be known. Well, in the last year or so, that sort of discipline has really broken down, whether it's on environmental issues, whether it's on gender issues, or indeed whether it's on the issue of how to achieve independence. More and more fissures have appeared, and it does seem that Nicola Sturgeon was struggling ever more to try and unite what was becoming a more and more disunited party.
Yeah, and another SNP MP there, Joanna Cherry, calling for reform and healing. So an indication perhaps that, you know, the party does have a lot to do to come together, or is it going to be more disparate in terms of the approach taken?
Well, leadership elections are never pretty. We've seen how the Tories fared during their leadership contest over last summer. That did do no favours for the Conservatives in the polls and clearly caused quite a lot of turbulence. Many of the people of the United Kingdom criticised the Conservative Party for talking to itself rather than the country over that summer. Similarly, when the Labour Party had its last really fractious leadership election back in the summer of 2015, it ended with Jeremy Corbyn winning, someone who was not aligned with where the median voter is in the country, but instead someone who chased after extreme members of that party. And in a similar way, the risk for the SNP is that the candidates in this upcoming election will chase after an extreme small selectorate of SNP members rather than talking to the median voter in Scotland as a whole. The question is, how do the other parties potentially take advantage of that, given the SNP's overwhelming dominant position in terms of seats and vote share as things stand?